At the end of a gray cinder block hallway, Amy Levesque unlocks a door and switches on the fluorescent light. A cavernous room is crammed to the ceiling with boxes of cereal, Hamburger Helper, and cans of stew.
Department of Social Services donated the formula and the baby food for us. And we also have something that people forget about and don't think that people need, which is diapers.
Ms. Levesque runs a food pantry in Watertown, New York, a short drive from the Fort Drum Army base. She says Army families make up 20% of the people who come in looking for free meals and supplies.
The military kind of has we take care of our own motto, which you realize that they kind of don't. And there's a lot of people that fall through the cracks and need the assistance that isn't getting it.
Ms. Levesque speaks from experience as a social service worker, but also as the wife of a soldier. Her husband, an Army specialist, brings home roughly $1,300 a month after taxes, not enough to pay for rent, food, utilities, and other necessities.
I have always worked 2 jobs, and my husband's, he's in the military, plus he has a nighttime job. So luckily we don't have any children. With children, it would be very difficult.
But half of the military's 1.3 million soldiers and sailors do have children. Even with subsidized housing and extra pay during deployments, many find that it's nearly impossible to make ends meet. Loretta Schwartz Noble is author of a recent book about hunger in America called Growing Up Empty. She says the lower ranks in the armed services are basically working poor.
Some of these kids see this as their chance out of poverty, the way to fulfill the American dream, so to speak. However, no matter how skillful a person or a family is, when you are earning somewhere in the area of $1,000 a month before taxes and you have 3 or 4 children, you are not going to be able to survive comfortably, even if you know how to make everything stretch.
The most recent Department of Defense report from 1999 found that 40% of lower-ranked soldiers face substantial financial difficulties. For her book, Ms. Schwartz Noble interviewed families at the Camp Pendleton Marine Corps base in San Diego. Some told her they simply go hungry.
For several days at the end of each paycheck period, they often have almost nothing to eat, sometimes absolutely nothing. That's when they turn up desperate at food pantries, soup kitchens, bread lines, because they've literally run out.
U.S. military officials acknowledge that poverty is a fact of life for some soldiers, but they say they're working to change that. The different branches of the armed services have begun new programs designed to help spouses find better jobs and to teach young families how to budget their money. For families already in crisis, the Defense Department has created subsistence grants, up to $500 each month.
There's never going to be a soldier, as long as we know about it, that goes without food, and his family is in that same situation.
Diane Hupko is an emergency relief officer at Fort Drum. Every day, she says, soldiers turn up here at the base's family center. It's a place where Army spouses and children meet to share support. Often, Ms. Hupko says, they come in frightened and hungry.
We last year had 1,061 cases, requiring $657,000 in assistance. You're dealing with about 10% of the population that needs that help.
Defense Department officials say the situation is improving, with far fewer families needing government financial help to buy food. Another pay hike goes into effect this year. But troops at the lower pay grades will get half of what many officers receive. And soldiers say the extra money will be offset by the growing number of deployments and transfers. On a snowy afternoon, a woman in fatigue sits in her car outside a strip mall near one of Fort Drum's main gates. Her boyfriend has gone inside a check-cashing shop. The neon sign promises loans to military families.
If you know how to budget your money real good, then you can live just by getting by. A lot of things that I have to worry about now, I thought I wouldn't have had to worry about.
The woman, in her early 20s, declines to give her name, but says she's an Army specialist who served for 2 years. Without federal nutrition programs like WIC, which provides infant formula and low-cost food for young children, she says her family couldn't make it.
One thing I do get, because my daughter, she's still a baby, I do get WIC. That's a good thing, and if you don't have WIC, that milk is really expensive.
This kind of need is painful for soldiers. Amy Levesque, with the food pantry in Watertown, says many of her military friends are too proud to speak up.
They have a very hard time coming in here and saying, I need help. It's kind of a shame thing. They feel embarrassed. They feel like they're not able to provide for their own dignity. They feel that they're losing part of their dignity.
Military bases around the country once allowed food pantries to bring supplies inside their gates. Here at Fort Drum, trucks delivered free food regularly, offering soldiers and their families more privacy. The trucks were banned after the September 11 terror attacks, forcing the families and the problem of military poverty into public view. I'm Brian Mann at Fort Drum.